Hi everyone and welcome to my Wex Live Masterclass in partnership with Nanlite. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can turn something like this into something like this. Hi everyone, my name is Jenny Alice. I'm a freelance videographer and photographer based in the UK. So today in this masterclass I'm going to be covering the principles of 3-point lighting, the gear I'm currently using. I'm going to be taking you guys on a mid-budget and low-budget interview lighting setup. I'm also going to be shooting a vlog style setup and I'm going to be doing this both mid-budget and low budget. And then I'm going to be giving you as many tips and tricks as I can possibly think of throughout this video. So if you find this video useful, please connect with me on my socials at Jenny Alice Films, and I'm also going to be live in the chat answering any questions throughout this video. So let's get started.
Okay, so what we've got here is a quick diagram of the 3-point lighting. So I'm just going to run through it really quick with you guys. So first we've got the key light. So this is the main source of light in any scene. And then you've got the fill light, which will fill in the contrasty shadows from the key light. And then finally you have the backlight, which is going to bring the subject away from the background and create some depth and dimension into the image. I know this diagram is a little bit boring, so I'm going to show you exactly what I mean at the studio.
Okay, so now we're going to start with the key light. So this is the main source of light in any scene. So today I'm going to be using my Forza 300B. Now this light goes up to around 37,000 lux from a meter. And the reason why I chose the 300B is because it's a bi-color fixture, which basically means that you can adjust the Kelvin. So it goes from 2700 to 6500 Kelvin, which is basically tungsten to daylight. So how warm the color temperature is in a scene. Today, I'm gonna have it at 5600, which is more daylight type of color temperature, which will work more for me. However, really flexible, so that's why I like having the B on my Forza B, Forza B, Forza B. So we have the Forza 300B set up already, but I haven't added a modifier on it yet. I'm just going to show you what it looks like without a modifier. Now I only have it set at 7% and you can already see how harsh the light is on my face, and it's just creating some really unflattering lighting. And I've got like loads of dark shadows where all my hair is and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a parabolic diffuser. And it just makes such a nice soft image. So I'm going to show you the difference. So now that we've set up the key light, we're going to move on to the fill light. So the purpose of the fill light is to basically fill in the contrasty shadows from the key light. So today I'm using my Nanlite Mixpanel 150. This has a built-in diffuser when you put it onto soft mode. So that's the mode I'm going to have it on today. And I'm also going to set the Kelvin to 5600 as it's also adjustable, which is awesome. So the color temperature is going to be the same on both of the lights. Now, positioning wise, normally for me personally, I like to have it the opposite side of the key light at 45 degrees. This just means that it's kind of filling in the contrasty shadows for me. Now, it is personal preference with how strong you want the fill light to be. It's kind of down to your creative vision of how you want the image to look. Just keep in mind, the more fill that you add, the flatter the image is going to become. And the less fill, the more contrasty the image is going to be. So depending on your creative goal, depends on how much fill you really want to add in. It's honestly down to personal preference and what you're filming, so there's no set rule for that. But today I'm going to have it at probably around half of the power to the key light, so ratio of 2:1, just so I can get a nice kind of cinematic look. For me, I like to have a little bit of contrast. I kind of like it. That's down to my personal preference. Again, it's down to your creative goal. So now that we've set up both lights, the key light and the fill light, we're going to move on to the backlight, which is our third light. And today I'm using the Forza 60 on a boom pole, pointing down onto the back of my head. This is why it's called a backlight. There's different names for it though, so we'll just stick with backlight today. And I'm going to start off with a Fresnel lens on it, which basically just makes the light more directional. but I'm not going to add a sheet of diff on it just yet. I'm going to see how it looks and see what it looks like in the image, and then if I need any diffusion, I'm going to add it on after I test it out first. So the good thing about backlights, just before I do that, the good thing about backlights is they bring the subject away from the background. So at the moment we've got the key and the film, which is nice. It creates that nice look and feel on the face, but it can feel kind of one-dimensional without a backlight. Once you add that backlight in, you can kind of see how all the lights are going to work together in creating a more dimensional, depthy feel look. Let's turn it on and start. Let's just start and turn it on. I'm very small. I'm very small, so step ladder for me. And let's turn it on. And I'm just gonna see what that looks like. Have a monitor so I can actually see what I look like, which is always useful. And then I'm gonna put my glasses on because I can't see anything. Okay, right, let's try that one again. Okay, mine is the ladder behind. I actually quite like how that looks. I might add a sheet of diff, maybe. I've checked how that looks on the camera. I felt like it was a little too harsh with the Fresnel lens, so I've widened the Fresnel a little bit and added a sheet of diff, just because I wanted it to have a little bit of a softer look. And I'm really happy with how that looks for this setup. And now I'm going to turn all the lights off and show you how it looks. Now that's our 3-point lighting setup complete in the studio. You can see how it creates depth and dimension, each light working with one another. However, just want to remind everyone, this is not a set rule, but it's important for me anyway. I felt it was important to learn the basics, and then you know what you're looking for and you can bend and break the rules accordingly. So we're going to take this setup and everything that we've put into practice, and we're going to take it onto location. And the beauty about shooting on location is you don't always have control over your environment like we do here today. So it's going to be really fun to take you guys along with me and to show you how we're going to adapt the lighting setups to our environment. So let's go. Okay, now we're on location. I want to run through not just the lighting setup, but also the whole process of how I would set up an interview on location. So first thing I'm going to start with is a recce. And I'm looking for where I'm going to set up the camera and where I want to shoot the interview. So the first thing I'm going to look for is natural light. Is the natural light, can I control it? Where's it coming from? For example, today we have these windows on the roof. I can't block them out, so we're going to work with that. And then I'm going to be looking for leading lines. I really like the leading lines you can get here. So maybe potentially set up here. And then I'm just going to walk around and see if there's anywhere else I could use. I'm looking for things like, where can I create depth of field? What's the sound like? So these are just a few things I keep in mind when I'm obviously walking around. So now that I've done a recce of the location, I've now chosen where I want to set up the interview. A really important tip for me is to look through the camera as well as your eyes when you're picking where you want to set up. It can look totally different through your camera lens than it can through the eye, depending on what focal length you're using. So just keep that in mind. So I've set this up here. I'm really happy with this. And before I get into what lighting I'm going to use, I'm just going to run through the camera equipment so you guys can see what I'm shooting on today. So we have got the Sony A7 III, and I've got my 50-1.8 Sony lens. This was the first lens I bought for this camera, and it's been such a reliable lens for me, really versatile and really cheap. Especially for a lens, a 50mm is a must-have for me to have in my bag. So on my Sony A7 III, I have a small rig cage. These are really great for making it more versatile. You can add lots of different accessories on, audio, monitors. Today I've just got the top handle on. This is great for getting low shots of people's walking in the feet. And I've also got a side handle. This is a nice wooden handle. A little bit more expensive, but it feels more high quality. And when I'm holding it, I've got more control over the camera. I am going to be getting other content in between the interviews. So it just means that I can slide the camera off the tripod and then go straight into B-roll and then put it straight back onto the tripod. Since I've had a small rig cage, I've actually never used this camera without one. I just find that it's a lot more easy to use and more versatile. So today I'm going to be using the Sennheiser G3. That's basically just a lav mic. I've got them off Wex. I got a receiver and a transmitter. And then when I'm setting it up, I like to put the mic around about here on the subject. That just for me works really well. I like to set the sensitivity to around -20 to -24. It honestly depends on who I'm shooting, to how loud they're talking, to how sensitive it's going to be. And then when I'm looking on my camera, I'm going to be looking for -6 to -12. I don't want it to be going red. As soon as it peaks, it makes it really difficult to bring the audio back. And when I mic up my subject, I also like to have a conversation with them so that I can gauge what the level is. If I say test 1, 2, 3, people normally shout it and it's not really a general way of talking. So I will have a conversation with them whilst I'm setting up and I get a better gauge of what their level is. So now that we've locked in our location, I'm going to move on to the framing. And when framing the subject, you want them to be looking past the camera. It's very easy to want to put them in the middle, but to create a more natural look and feel to the conversation, you want to move them a little bit to the side so you've got a little bit more negative space for where the conversation is going to be taking place. So same as the studio, we've done the same setup. We've got the Forza 300B, the Nanlite Mixpanel 150, and the backlight as a Forza 60 with a sheeted diff. Now, as you can see, the sun has came out, which is not great because the light does change. It means I have to change the camera settings. It's just something to keep an eye out for using natural light, is just to make sure that your subject does not become too overexposed when the sun decides to show up. I kind of prefer clean shots where it's just like them and the background. So I've replaced the chair with a bench just to give it a little, I don't know, it's personal preference. All of this is down to personal preference, and I personally prefer just to see the subject rather than an old chair. A little tip from me when setting up on location is to always bring as many extension leads as possible, as you never know where the power supply is. So the good thing about the Forza 300B is it actually comes with a ballast. So it doesn't come with batteries, but you can actually put in your V-Lock mount batteries on it. So if there's no power supply at location, you can just bring along your rechargeable batteries. Today, obviously, I can use the power, so I've just plugged it into an extension lead. Now let's have a look at the final image. So that is our mid-budget setup complete, same as the one I've shown you in the studio. Now, I also want to show you a low-budget setup. This is because, story time, when I first started out as a videographer, I only had one camera and one lens and absolutely no lighting equipment. And to educate myself and to learn more about lighting, I would watch a lot of YouTube videos, and it was a lot of people with a lot of expensive equipment. And for me, it just felt really deflating and as if like it was just a million miles away from where I was at that point. So we're going to see how we can replicate this look on a budget. Okay, so now we've set up our low budget lighting. I'm just going to walk you through it and tell you exactly what each light is doing. So for the key light, which is the main source of light into the scene, we're going to be using the Forza 60. Now we use this as a backlight in the mid-budget setup, but today it's going to be the key light, and for a diffusion, I've added 2 sheets of diff, similar to the Parabolic diffuser, but just 2 sheets of diff. And then the light is going to basically be reflecting onto our reflector. These are great, lightweight, cheap and portable. This was around £10. When you're on location and you've got lots of stuff to carry, really great when you've got light equipment. So these come in different colors. You can get gold, white, silver, more. They all reflect different color temperatures. Today I'm using silver because that's going to reflect daylight. So key light reflecting onto the reflector, which is our fill light, and then we've got our backlight. So today we're going to be using the windows. So these are great, they're free, which is always a plus. And you can see there's loads of windows, loads of natural light flooding in. We're going to utilize it and we're going to use it as our backlight. And that's our 3-point lighting setup done. Okay, so really quick one. It's not a written rule to have 3-point lighting on interviews. You could have 2-point lighting, you could have 1 point, you could literally just have a key light if you wanted to. There's no rules, it's all down to personal interpretation, it's down to your creative goal, it's down to what budget you've got, your location. It's down to a lot of different factors, so don't limit yourself to a rule. Use your creative vision and use the objects around you to create that vision. Don't limit yourself due to budget. Now let's compare both of the lighting setups side by side and see how they look. Okay guys, we're now on the self-shooting setup. You can see that I'm in a small dark room. It's not very interesting and the lighting isn't great. So I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna switch this around, make it a little bit more interesting, add a little bit of spice. And yep, let's get started. Okay, you've probably noticed it's gone very dark. So what I've done is I've turned off the house lights which were previously on. So whenever I'm lighting a scene, I like to turn off any lights that are already in the room. This is just so I can bring in my own lighting and have full control of the setup. So starting off with the key light, I've put the Forza 60 with a Fresnel lens pointing down at my face as the key light. This is the main source of light in the scene. There's no diffusion on the light at the moment. I just wanted to show you what it looks like without any diffusion. And you can see around my nose here with the shadows and like all around here, it's just very unflattering lighting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that and add a few sheets of diff and just try and soften up a little bit to make it a little bit more flattering. Okay, so now I have added 4 sheets of diffusion on top of my Forza 60. It will just give it a softer look. It's obviously still quite contrasty as I don't have a fill yet, but the shadows overall are a lot less harsh on my face and they're a little bit more flattering. Now I've added the fill light and I haven't actually added a light at all, if I'm honest. I've added a white poly. So these are great when you're shooting in small locations or if you don't have enough equipment because they're literally just a big whiteboard. And what it's going to be doing today, what it's doing right now, is you've got the Forza 60 with the 4 sheets of diff and that's shining towards me, but I've also got a white poly board right next to me. So that's going to also bounce back the light onto my face. So you could literally use anything for white poly as long as it's white, because white reflects light. Yeah. So I've got an example here. I've got a picture, but on the back it's actually white and it's cardboard. So you could literally just use this instead of a white poly. And if you wanted a more contrasty look, you would use black for negative fill because black boards basically absorb light, so it gives you more contrast. So it does the opposite of what white reflectors or white polyboards would do. So white reflects light. Okay, so this is our fill and our key light sorted. And you can see, I mean, I'm happy with that, but the only thing that I'm unhappy with is the background for me looks a little bit boring. Now, whenever you're filming at home, sometimes you don't have a very interesting background. Like today, I've just got this black background, but I feel like we could do something better with this. So what I'm going to do is show you guys how I would light a plain background and give it something a little bit extra with some lighting. So for the backlight, I've got 2 Nanlite Pavo tubes. These are 30C and I've got one set to magenta and I've got one set to teal. So I've got these 2 colours on either side and I've also left them in shot. I just find that these Pavo tubes are quite aesthetically pleasing and they just add a little bit of something to the background, seeing as at the moment I have just a plain black void. I'm gonna have a little play around, see if there's any other setups that I like. This is the first time I've ever set up a self-shooting YouTube style video, so I'm just gonna play around and see what kind of style that I like the most. Because of what I'm wearing today, I kind of want the lighting to complement or reflect my outfit, you know. Right now we've got orange, and then I'm gonna have a look and see what else I could set up maybe, just to see how I could improve this setup. So I've kept the same colour, but this time I've added them onto a C stand with a boom pole to create like this triangle symmetry kind of vibe. I kind of like the way that it all just fits in nice and well in the frame. And I'm really liking this setup actually. This is my favourite one. I feel like I've got a bit of a Star Trek vibe going on, which I'm a big fan of. I mean, I'll see if there's anything else, but for now I feel like this is probably the setup I'm going to stay with. So this is just another example of how you could use those colours. And moving on to the key light, it doesn't have to be at 45 degrees. Again, really flexible depending on what you want out of the video. You could even put the key light directly in front of you, something like this. Now, this is something that you'll see a lot of beauty gurus using, just because it is a lot more flattering than having the contrasty look where it can sometimes show imperfections on your face. So this is something that maybe you want to keep in mind if you're doing a YouTube video self-shooting. If you want more of a clean, flawless, beautiful face, then use this light. Winner. And now that we've covered all of that, let's do the same setup, but this time on a budget. All right, so again, all the lights are off and we're going to come back in with our key light. Okay, so now we've got our key light. Because this is more a low budget one, I want to make it simpler and easier as well. So we're just going to put the key light right about here, pointing down to get that nice beauty even lighting. So I've got two Nanlite Pavo tubes, which are 6C. So the ones I used before were 30C and they were a lot longer. These are 6C, a lot smaller and a lot cheaper and affordable. I love these, and I've got two of them set up. So I've got a C stand with a boom pole and two Nanlite Pavo tubes attached to it, literally just pointing down onto the top of my head. And now we've sorted out the key light, we're going to move in with a backlight. So with the backlight, we've got two Nanlite Pavo tubes. I've done the same as I have in the front. So I put a C stand with a boom pole, and I basically just use the magnetic back of the Pavo tube directly to the boom pole. And I'm going to try some different colours and see which one I like. I've added a more warm orangey tone vibe to this setup, similar to the other one that I did on a higher end budget, and I really like the way that this looks. So that is the end of my Wex masterclass with you guys. I really hope that you found this masterclass useful. If you have, please comment, let me know. Thank you to Nanlite for working with me, and thank you for Wex for allowing me to create this masterclass with you guys. So on that note, thank you guys so much, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon.